The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the pine-dotted mountains of rural Montana. Jake Whitman steadied his breathing, his rifle balanced on a rock outcropping as he scanned the valley below. Hunting was a ritual for him, a way to reconnect with the instincts honed over 2 decades as a Navy SEAL. He wasn't after a prize today, just the solace of silence and the rhythm of the hunt. A sharp crack echoed in the distance, not from his rifle, but something alien to the stillness. Jake froze. The sound wasn't natural, more like metal rending against itself. Then came the glow. At first faint, it grew brighter, illuminating the trees in an unnatural, pulsing blue. His instincts screamed at him to move, but his training forced him to observe. Moments later, the glow coalesced into a hovering machine, sleek and angular, skimming just above the treetops. Jake's hand tightened around his rifle. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't human. The drone, a term Jake instinctively assigned to it, scanned the area with beams of light that cut through the dusk like knives. He melted into the terrain, his camo blending seamlessly with the brush. The drone paused as if sensing something, then tilted upward and zipped away at blinding speed. Jake exhaled, but the reprieve was short-lived. A distant explosion rumbled from the town below, the orange fireball stark against the fading daylight. He sprinted back to his truck, the rifle slung over his shoulder. By the time he reached the outskirts of the small town of Elk Ridge, chaos had taken hold. Vehicles were overturned and buildings burned. People screamed as alien figures, insectoid in form and clad in iridescent armor, stalked through the streets, systematically eliminating anything that moved. Jake parked the truck out of sight and approached on foot. He counted 3 hostiles in his immediate line of sight, their movements eerily precise and coordinated. Civilians cowered or ran, only to be cut down by bursts of energy from the aliens' weapons. Jake's jaw tightened. He spotted one of the aliens aiming at a group of people huddled behind a wrecked car. Without hesitation, Jake raised his rifle. The shot was clean, the sound muffled by his suppressor. The alien's head snapped back, its body crumpling to the ground. Its companions whirled, scanning for the source of the attack. But Jake was already moving. He repositioned, took out a second, and slipped into an alley as the third alien began retreating, likely calling for reinforcements. A hand grabbed his shoulder, and Jake spun, knife in hand, ready to strike. The face that greeted him was familiar. "Easy, Whitman." Mike Torres, a former Marine and a tech wizard, held his hands up. "Saw you take down those things. Figured you wouldn't mind a little backup." "Torres, what the hell's going on here?" Jake demanded. "Wish I knew," Mike replied. "They came out of nowhere. Hit us fast and hard. This isn't random. It's extermination." Jake nodded grimly. "Then we fight back." The two moved through the town like ghosts, gathering survivors and avoiding patrols. They found Ethan O'Reilly barricaded in the local hardware store, fashioning makeshift explosives from propane tanks and fertilizer. "Didn't think I'd ever miss Afghanistan," Ethan quipped as he lit a Molotov cocktail to hurl at an approaching drone. "Guess we're bringing the fight home now." The trio soon stumbled upon Will Grayson, a former Army medic who had set up a triage in the town's diner. Despite the chaos, he worked methodically, bandaging wounds and offering words of reassurance to the terrified townsfolk. "Grayson, we're moving," Jake ordered. "I'm not leaving these people," Will shot back. "They'll die if we don't figure out how to stop this," Jake countered. Will hesitated but eventually relented, ushering the able-bodied to follow. By nightfall, they had established a makeshift base in an abandoned sawmill on the town's edge. The survivors, though shaken, began to rally under Jake's leadership. Mike dissected one of the downed drones, his fingers deftly prying apart its alien circuitry. "This tech is insane," he muttered, "but it's got weaknesses. They're not built to think on the fly. Rigid programming, predictable patterns." Ethan leaned over, grinning. "So we out-crazy them. Works for me." Jake's mind worked furiously. The aliens weren't invincible. They bled, they died. And if they had weaknesses, humans could exploit them. That was what humanity did best: adapt, improvise, overcome. As they strategized, a captured alien, wounded but alive, stirred in its bindings. Its compound eyes reflected the dim light of the sawmill, and its mandibles clicked in what sounded like speech. Mike rigged a translator using salvage tech and a voice module from the town's emergency broadcast system. "You cannot resist," the alien's voice grated, distorted but intelligible. "Your chaos will be extinguished." Jake crouched before it, his gaze cold. "What are you? Why are you here?" The alien hesitated, its insectoid features unreadable. "Humanity unpredictable. Dangerous. Galactic Empire neutralizes threats." Jake's lip curled. "Neutralize this," he growled, rising and motioning for Ethan to silence the creature. The message was clear. Earth wasn't just under attack. It was being eradicated because its people were deemed too wild, too chaotic, too dangerous. Jake turned to the group, his voice steady but hard. "They think our chaos is a weakness. They don't understand it's our greatest strength. We're going to show them what humans can do." The night stretched on as the group prepared for the fight ahead, their resolve hardening like tempered steel. Jake's mind lingered on the alien's words. Humanity was unpredictable, yes, but that chaos would be their weapon. Tomorrow, the fight would begin in earnest. For now, they honed their blades and their minds, readying themselves to become the storm the Galactic Empire never saw coming. Jake Whitman crouched in the shadows of the sawmill, his eyes scanning the tree line through the scope of his rifle. The town was eerily silent now, the fires from the initial attack having burned themselves out. Alien patrols moved methodically through the wreckage, searching for survivors. Jake had seen this kind of precision before, enemy forces trying to root out resistance before it could take hold. But this time, the enemy wasn't human. Behind him, Mike Torres worked furiously, assembling a device from scavenged drone parts and salvaged electronics. His hands moved with practiced precision, his marine discipline giving way to a spark of mad scientist ingenuity. "This should work," Mike muttered, soldering two wires together. "If I can hack their signal, we'll know their patrol routes before they know we're coming." Jake didn't look away from his scope. "How long?" 10 minutes, give or take," Mike replied. "We don't have 10 minutes. Jake adjusted his position, tracking an alien patrol that was moving dangerously close to their hideout. Ethan O'Reilly appeared at Jake's side, hefting a satchel of explosives. "I can buy us some time," set a little surprise in their path. Jake shook his head. "Too risky. They'll trace it back here." "Not if I set it far enough out," Ethan argued. "Besides, I'm itching to see if these bastards bleed the same color twice." Jake relented with a nod, and Ethan slipped into the night, like a shadow. In the makeshift command center, Will Grayson examined the civilians they had managed to rescue. Many were injured, their faces etched with fear and exhaustion. Will moved among them, his calm demeanor a steadying presence. He handed a young man a water bottle and a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "Stay quiet, stay alert," Will said softly. "We'll get through this." He joined Jake and Mike as Ethan returned, his grin wide and wild. "Trap set. 5 aliens, maybe more, are about to have a very bad night." Seconds later, a distant explosion lit up the tree line, followed by the screeching of alien voices. Jake smirked. "That'll keep them busy." Mike's laptop pinged, drawing his attention. He tapped furiously at the keyboard, his grin matching Ethan's. "Guy, their comms are wide open. I can see where they're sending reinforcements, supply drops, everything." Jake leaned over, studying the crude map on the screen. "What's that?" he asked, pointing to a large cluster of activity on the outskirts of town. "Command post, most likely," Mike replied. "If we hit it, we cut their coordination to pieces." Jake considered the risk. Attacking the command post would draw attention, but it could also shift the tide in their favor. "We take it out," he decided. "Ethan, pack everything you've got. Will, you're on Overwatch. Mike, stay here and keep feeding us intel." They moved quickly, slipping through the ruins of the town like ghosts. Jake led the way, his every step calculated, his rifle ready. Ethan followed close behind, his satchel of explosives swinging at his side. Will brought up the rear, scanning their flanks for any sign of movement. The command post was a stark contrast to the chaos of the town. Alien structures had been erected with an efficiency that was almost unnerving, gleaming, organic shapes that pulsed faintly with blue light. The area was heavily guarded, with patrols crisscrossing the perimeter. Jake signaled for the team to stop. He raised his scope, studying the terrain and the alien movements. 2 sentries on the west side, he whispered. Will, take the one on the right. I've got the left. The 2 men fired in unison, their suppressed shots cutting through the night. The sentries dropped silently, their bodies crumpling to the ground. Ethan grinned. Showtime. They moved in, slipping past the outer defenses and into the heart of the command post. Inside, the air was charged with energy, the faint hum of alien machinery filling the space. Jake spotted a console that looked important and motioned for Ethan to set his charges. Make it big, he said. Always do, Ethan replied, planting explosives with practiced ease. As they worked, the alien comms crackled to life in Jake's earpiece. Courtesy of Mike's hack. You've got incoming, Mike's voice warned. 2 patrols, closing fast. Jake cursed under his breath. Ethan, hurry up. Almost done, Ethan replied, setting the final charge. The sound of approaching footsteps sent a jolt of adrenaline through Jake. He motioned for Will to take position, then raised his rifle. The first alien rounded the corner, its weapon raised, but Jake's shot was faster. Will took down the second moments later. Charges are set, Ethan called out. Fall back, Jake ordered. They moved quickly but methodically, retracing their steps through the compound. As they reached the perimeter, Jake signaled to Ethan, who triggered the explosives. The resulting blast lit up the night, a fiery bloom that consumed the alien command post. The team regrouped at the sawmill, their breaths heavy but their spirits high. The loss of the command post had thrown the alien forces into disarray, and for the first time since the invasion began, the tide seemed to be turning. Jake studied the map on Mike's laptop, watching as the alien patrols scrambled in response to the attack. They'll adapt, he said. But so will we. Will leaned against the wall, his expression thoughtful. They came here thinking we'd roll over. They didn't count on this. Jake nodded. That's their mistake, and we're going to make sure they regret it. As the night wore on, the team prepared for their next move, their resolve unshaken. The aliens had underestimated humanity, but Jake and his team were determined to show them what chaos really looked like. The alien ship was a masterpiece of engineering, sleek and organic, its exterior reflecting the faint light of Earth's moon. Jake Whitman crouched behind a jagged outcrop. His team fanned out around him, their breaths visible in the frigid lunar air. They'd come far since that first night in Montana, pushing themselves to the limit with every encounter. Now they were on the enemy's turf, ready to deliver a message the Galactic Empire would never forget. Mike Torres tapped on a wrist-mounted interface, the stolen alien tech glowing faintly. I've cracked their outer perimeter sensors. We've got a 15-minute window before they know we're here. Jake's eyes never left the ship. 15 minutes is all we need. Ethan, are the charges ready? Ethan O'Reilly grinned, patting the pack slung over his shoulder. Ready and willing to give them a fireworks show they'll be talking about for centuries. Will Grayson adjusted the sights on his rifle, scanning the lunar landscape. Let's just hope they don't have reinforcements waiting in orbit. One ship is enough of a challenge. Jake's voice was steady, resolute. We've made it this far. No turning back now. They moved as one, darting from shadow to shadow, their movements precise and silent. The ship loomed larger with each step, its surface shifting subtly, as though alive. The main hatch was guarded by 2 insectoid sentries, their energy weapons glowing faintly in the darkness. Jake raised his hand, signaling Will. The medic-turned-sniper exhaled slowly, his finger steady on the trigger. The crack of his shot was muffled by the thin lunar atmosphere, but the result was unmistakable. One alien collapsed, and before the second could react, Jake's rifle spoke, dropping it with equal efficiency. Clear, Jake said, his voice low. Mike sprinted to the hatch, his fingers dancing across the alien interface. Their systems are layered, but nothing I can't handle. Give me a second. Ethan crouched beside him, his hand steady as he prepped a shaped charge. If you can't hack it, I'll blow it open. Mike snorted. Subtlety, O'Reilly. Ever heard of it? The hatch hissed open, revealing a dimly lit corridor that pulsed with blue light. Jake led the way, his rifle at the ready. The interior of the ship was unnerving, the walls lined with what looked like veins and glowing nodes. It was as if they were walking inside a living organism. Stay sharp, Jake warned. We don't know what's waiting for us. The team moved deeper into the ship, their boots making no sound on the strange, pliable floor. Mike consulted his interface, his brow furrowing. Command center should be straight ahead. That's where they're controlling the fleet and coordinating the ground forces. Ethan hefted his satchel. Then that's where these charges are going. They reached the command center, a sprawling chamber dominated by a massive, holographic display of Earth. Alien figures moved about, their movements precise and calculated. Jake counted 5 targets, all heavily armed. Grayson, pick your targets, Jake whispered. Ethan, get the charges in place. Mike, find a terminal and download everything you can. I want to know what else they've got planned. The team sprang into action. Will took out 2 aliens with pinpoint accuracy, while Jake and Ethan engaged the rest, their human reflexes and unpredictability proving superior to the aliens' calculated tactics. Mike found a terminal and began downloading data, his eyes flicking between the screen and the chaos around him. They're planning something big, he muttered. Massive reinforcements from the core worlds. They think this invasion is just the beginning. Then we make sure it's the end, Jake replied, firing a shot that dropped the last alien in the room. Ethan worked quickly, planting charges around the command center's core systems. This much explosive in a confined space. This ship's going to fold in on itself like a tin can. Good, Jake said. Mike, got what you need. Got it, Mike confirmed, disconnecting his interface. Let's move. The team retraced their steps, the ship's interior now eerily silent. As they reached the hatch, the ship shuddered, an alarm blaring through the corridors. They know we're here, Will said, his tone grim. Then we move faster, Jake ordered. They burst out of the hatch and sprinted for cover, the charges on a timer. Alien reinforcements spilled from the ship, their weapons blazing, but the humans were already too far away. Jake dove behind a rock, turning to watch the spectacle unfold. The charges detonated in a chain reaction, the ship's core systems igniting in a brilliant explosion. The vessel groaned as its structure collapsed, fragments scattering across the lunar surface. Mike let out a whoop. Now that's how you take down an empire. Jake didn't smile, his gaze fixed on the wreckage. This isn't over. They'll come back stronger and angrier. Will nodded. But now they know we can hit them where it hurts. That's a message they won't forget. The team began their trek back to the stolen shuttle that had brought them to the moon. Jake walked at the front, his mind already racing with plans for the next phase of their fight. They'd struck a blow, but the war was far from won. As they boarded the shuttle, Mike turned to Jake. So what's next? Jake looked out at the stars, his expression resolute. We keep fighting. For every town they've burned, for every life they've taken. We'll show them what humanity is made of. The shuttle's engines roared to life, lifting them off the lunar surface. Behind them, the wreckage of the alien ship smoldered, a testament to human resilience and ingenuity. In the vast expanse of space, the Galactic Empire would soon learn that Earth was not a world to be conquered. It was a force to be reckoned with.